Hey everyone, welcome to our group discussion today where we are going to discuss a very interesting topic, which is the relationship between media, movies, and gender inequality, gender based violence, and intimate partner violence. Thank you everyone who took the time to find some clips ahead of time and send them to us. And now let's get into it.
So to get started, I want to read two lines from an article that I read this morning. It's actually a piece of news, and it says in Tasmania in 2015, a man of Indian origin was let off with a restraining order in two cases of stalking. The magistrate appreciated his defense that his cultural background, which is Bollywood movies, gave him the message that stalking was an act that would be rewarded. So this is a real life case that happened, and this was an argument made and accepted in front of a judge. With this, I want to start with a clip, a movie clip, and I will. So this is I have two 1 to 2 minute clips here.
£60 क्यों?
मनु फोन बिल के लिए £60 चाहिए।
£60 क्यों? इतना ज्यादा?
तुम ही फोन पर बात करती रहती हो अपने भाइयों से इंडिया। वो मेरी ब्लैक शर्ट देना, चल।
मैं करता खर्चा किस तरह चलाऊंगी?
तुम्हारे भाइयों से कहो पैसे भेजें प्यारी बहना के लिए।
तुसी कितने जा रहे हो?
अपने दोस्तों से मिलने जा रहा हूँ, अभी आता हूँ।
मैनू पता है कि तुसी किन्नू मिलन जा रहे हो। थानू शर्म आनी चाहिए है। मेरे दिल विच तुहाडा बच्चा है।
हट जाओ सामने से। मैं क्या हट जा? मैंने जान के नहीं किया। किरण, तुम ठीक हो? बच्चा ठीक है? बच्चा ठीक है ना? क्यों ऐसा करती है? जिससे मेरा दिमाग खराब हो जाए, गुस्सा आ जाए मुझे। किरण, I'm sorry किरण, माफ कर दे मुझे, sorry.
And then let's play this clip real quick for a minute. Taman, if you could click on this link, and then we can start the discussion.
Love this.
कभी प्यार में डिजर्व रिस्पेक्ट क्या होता है?
फिल्मी लैंग्वेज में बात किया ना तो एक कान के नीचे बजा के दूंगा। What's wrong with your father? प्यार से बात कर तो समझ में नहीं आता उसको। Is dumb or what?
कभी he's my father.
So, तो क्या? वापस बोल। He's my father. गंदी गालियां दूंगा। You know what, Preeti? Imagine this is not 2019. ये राजा महाराजाओं का टाइम है. If at that time he came between you and me, what would I have done? I would have waged war against him. बेड़ियों में बंद करके सील के केज के अंदर डाल के उनके सामने शादी मनाता तुझसे. Traditional style.
पागल हो गई तुम? Have you completely lost it?
Yeah, I've lost it. I've gone mad. क्या बोलते हैं? तू मेरी ये जन्मी है, मैं तेरे लिए जन्मा हूँ. You know what I think? तेरे पापा, मेरे पापा के पापा, मेरे पापा के पापा के पापा और तेरे सारे पूर्वज जन्मे मेरे लिए. So that they could make babies, who would make babies, who would make babies so that I could be with you. और क्या हो रहा है यहाँ पे? What the hell is this shit? Just shut up. 6 घंटे हैं तेरे पास. अपना दिमाग लगा और डिसाइड कर तुझे क्या करना है. समझी?
Please.
Shut up. मैं तेरे लिए कुछ भी कर सकता हूँ प्रीति. अगर तुझ में भी मेरे लिए वैसा पागलपन है then call me, otherwise you know me.
Baby, don't complicate it, please.
What complicate? क्या हो जाएगा? कुछ नहीं होगा. ज़्यादा क्या होगा? तेरी शादी करा देंगे ना उससे. Good. Go. Get married to that asshole. I curse you to get married to your father's choice.
Thank you, Daman. So we saw two clips. One was from the movie Provoked. This movie was released in 2006. And the next one was from Kabir Singh, which was released in 2019. The movies were made 13 years apart, but you can see the difference in which domestic violence / domestic abuse / aggression has been portrayed in one movie versus the other. It is ironic that the more recent movie is portraying a relationship in such poor light. And so I would like to open the forum up by asking, what are some words that come to mind when you saw the Provoked clip versus what were some words that came to mind when you saw the Kabir Singh clip? Provoked, the words that came out that stood out for me were Provoked was a portrayal of intimate partner abuse, and Kabir Singh was glorification of intimate partner abuse. Say in Provoked, the abuser was displayed as a villain. In Kabir Singh, the abuser was the hero of the movie. It was normalized. He had anger issues, and that's what it was. That's it. It was just anger issues. So it's easy to find examples of macho, masculine heroes engaging in aggression. But when it comes to realistic portrayal of relationship abuse, we can literally count the movies on our fingers that do that, Provoked being one of them, Thappad being one of them. There's just some handful of those. So interestingly, there was a petition that was addressed to the Central Board of Film Certification. This happened in 2019 of Information and Broadcasting Ministry, and it has over 1 million signatures, and it demands that a disclaimer be displayed prominently at the bottom of the screen saying these acts of violence are strictly punishable per our laws. Films that depict such violence also include a disclaimer. A 30-second public service ad condemning all forms of violence is broadcast before the film or during the interval, much like smoking causes cancer ads or disclaimers related to smoking. But then this news made me wonder that even if this petition is passed, what is the portrayal, what is the glorification, and what is the normalization? Will this disclaimer be shown in front of Kabir Singh, a movie, or will it be shown in front of Provoked movie? So
Isha,
I want to open up the forum. Yeah.
I had a quick thing. A couple of words that come up for me with these two movies is also mainstream and art cinema, which is actually shocking because a movie like Kabir Singh, where just so toxic, so horrific, was perceived as a mainstream movie for general consumption. But if you ask people about, hey, have you watched Provoked? They're like, oh, it's a kind of a biopic. It's an arty movie. It's about domestic violence. It was not, public did not consume it the way that a Kabir Singh was consumed, which is all the more shocking to me because it's like, this is entertaining. I'm like, how do you find this entertaining? Versus that is, if you want serious movies, if you want to watch serious movies, you go and watch Provoked. It will be very sad to watch it.
So with
That's a very good point.
Kabir Singh, it wasn't just entertaining also. Like I had a conversation with a 30-year-old and he liked it. And although he's married and I know that's not absolutely not the way his relationship is or whatever. But when I asked him, like, why do you like this movie? He said, it's just the way it is. He's just so passionate about her that it comes out in different ways, and they have portrayed it so well. And then I was like discussing that passion does not mean you hurt that other person. But she's like, yeah, but she was okay with it, right? She didn't say anything. So that's also another aspect where the woman also thinks that, yeah, if they are displaying their possessiveness, that is a sign of love.
So I wanted to address Twisha's comment of that, showing movies, disclaimers in movies, right? I fully imagine that a film like Kabir Singh, they won't put a disclaimer because it is not like smoking, where you see a cigarette in somebody's hand, right? But when you start that trend of putting disclaimers in movies, then future movies will pause and think, right? Future storytellers. In India, these censor boards can really throw their weight around when they need to. Obviously, sometimes a lot of times they're misplaced too, but this will give them an additional thing to pause and ponder about. Hopefully, again, there's no guarantee, but again, it comes from how much these kind of initiatives are supported and done. But I like the idea of having disclaimers for at least very obvious situations. And Kabir Singh, I needed context because I hadn't seen that movie. So only when you put in that context that he's a hero and he has anger issues did I understand the context of why it was something that was accepted by other people.
Kabir Singh actually was a movie that was made in a different language first, and it was a super hit. And then they remade it in Bollywood, which speaks volumes that not only people liked it in one language, they felt the need to remake it. And if you have not seen the movie, he also slaps her right after this scene. So it's even worse than the clip that we saw.
I want to make a comment on Kabir Singh. I saw the original movie which was made in Telugu, Aarjun Reddy, which became such a big hit. And I can write a thesis about the misogyny that is there in this movie, okay? But I don't want to talk about that. But then there have been people who have argued with me that this is the director's artistic take on a story. This is just a story. Why are you looking at it? It's just one guy and one girl. It does not mean that all the men in the world are like that, like Arjun Reddy, or all the women in the world are like Preeti, right? That is that's an argument. I just lost my temper with a lot of people by discussing about this movie, and I couldn't really have a sane conversation.
It's like saying Trump was just one of the 45 presidents.
Yeah, it's like you make a mainstream movie that shows this kind of it is not just a question. This movie especially, you can actually do a class on this movie about how what is misogyny, right? You show this movie scene by scene, you can say, okay, this is misogynistic. This is every scene, literally every scene you can pick out and choose. But the way people have reacted to that movie, it has become a huge hit in Telugu. Then they made it in Hindi, which it became even bigger hit, I think. So they made it in Tamil, they made it in different movies, and it was remade, not just like dubbed versions, right? Remade with actors. So what does it say about our society, right? That we are so accepting of this normalization of a guy. It starts from the first scene. I don't know how many of you have seen the movie. When he sees her in the medical college, right? As she's walking and he says, Idi Nadira in Telugu, right? He tells his friends that this woman belongs to me. That's how the movie starts. And
Jaya, this reminds me of when I was in college in India. There was this culture among the guys, I can't say men yet, but guys, they would be like, oh, ye teri bhabhi hai. Like they would just claim girls walking by, ye teri bhabhi hai. Like, and living in that culture, you would not recognize how wrong that is, because you are also being conditioned in similar ways that this is how you are appreciated for how you look if some guy is imprinting in that way.
And with the Kabir Singh, it's very interesting how her attitude towards him changes, because in the beginning she's afraid, very scared, she doesn't like him. But then after, I mean, it's typical Bollywood formula where something happens and he protects her. But that original reasons for why she was afraid, it's more like, okay, if it's to me at the time, it just felt like she's just doing it to be safe. Otherwise she would be in trouble. I mean, and that's something we did see in acid attacks and all of that too. So you either agree or just live in fear.
I just have a short comment about creative freedom, right? Somebody mentioned that.
Yes.
So if you take, let's say, one of the most celebrated directors in the Western movie industry, Tarantino, right? If you, I made the mistake of watching one of his movies, Kill Bill, and I did not go through the whole movie because it's so violent. So I just couldn't take it. And from that time onwards, I have made a choice to avoid his movies. The subject matter, no matter how that is, but the way he shows violence, it is celebrated around the world, right? Oscar and you name it, Cannes, jury prizes and all. So where would the balance be? Because these movies that you're talking about, movies are like mirrors of our society. Now, yes, it is wrong. It was showing this guy in this very disturbing situations. But if these disturbing situations are in our society, why is it the director's fault? Because he's pointing to that. It is not probably, right? I'm just, that's just my comment.
I feel the same way too. So what are movies, right? What are movies or what are novels, what are books? Like somebody can say, like, think about like a movie like 50 Shades of Grey or something like that, right? It is like just unnatural violence in that movie. But whereas these things, like I have not seen Kabir Singh or I have not seen Provoked, but I think they are just showing what is really happening in the society, and that's the society, that's what we live in, right? But what it does is that it kind of encourages these conversations, right? Like the conversation that Jaya had with somebody, whether you could influence them or not, at least the conversation happened, right? And I'm not sure that Indians are saying that, oh, the way Kabir Singh behaved is right or anything. They may say that, oh, this is such a good representation of our lives or something like that, you can like a movie, right? For example, I just recently watched this a movie which is like a set of 4 short stories. It's all about caste, honor killings and all that. It's a Tamil movie, and if you guys have a chance, you must watch it, because that is actually realistic, right? And if you don't show it, actually we won't know that these caste issues exist in the society. And when you see this movie and then you talk to people who are like on the ground working with these people, they tell you that yes, such honor killings in South India, in certain families, these things happen. And I think that is awareness. And I think I mean, that's what I feel about it. I mean, I don't think that these movies shouldn't be made. I don't think any one of you is saying it, but I kind of like it when these social issues are brought to the forefront and then it starts a conversation.
I just wanted to say the same thing, that yes, I've watched both of these movies, Provoked as well as Kabir Singh, and I have talked to my friends about it. And everybody I've talked to, everybody said that they loved the movie Provoked, and loved not just the movie, but the concept that they showed this and this happens, and then everybody obviously condemned what he was doing to her. And everybody that I talked to about Kabir Singh, people actually said that they did not like the movie. And even though I think movie was a big hit and everybody went to watch Shahid Kapoor probably because of him. But most of the people that I have talked to about these movies, they, especially Kabir Singh, they condemned the movie. They said that it was a complicated character, and you could probably think that he has mental health issues. That's what most people said, that guy is not normal, that normal people don't behave that. So even though, yes, everybody wanted to watch the movie or went to see the movie, but it was definitely, the behavior was not encouraged or accepted, I think.
I guess that's where the boundary between portrayal versus glorification becomes. Imagine a 14 or a 15-year-old boy watching Kabir Singh, not like a 40-year-old man. So what impact will that have, and how can the filmmakers, yes, they can express what they want to express. If their central character has anger issues, sure, but how can they move away from the glorification part of it? I guess that is the big question here.
yeah, they may not be able to move away from that. And I guess, even the person they pick to play that character has something to do with it. If you picked somebody very popular and very, like Shah Rukh Khan or somebody, people have a hard time hating that character, no matter what they end up doing, if they love them so much to begin with, right? But I think as parents, as people in the society, as our friends, I mean, if we talk to somebody, if I took my son to watch this movie, I would definitely have a conversation with him about this and say that, what did you think of this and what's going on? And, if my daughter was watching this with me, definitely have those conversations. So these kind of things do give you an opportunity to talk about these issues and these behaviors, and at least from your side, you tell them that these are unacceptable, and get to hear their view, that what did they think of it. So I think it's good to have these conversations and have the opportunity to have these conversations, as Geeta was saying. So I think that is important, because a lot of times, if you are not exposed to this behavior, but if you have certain feelings like that or emotions like that, if you get angry suddenly, with somebody or at something, but you've never seen that, if your father is not very, he's a calm person, you've never seen something like that, then you never get to address that, and it may come out somewhere else. So I think it's good opportunities to have these conversations.
So I have a bunch of kids from 20 to 32 years old in the house. I asked them, hey, do you guys think of any movie that shows patriarchy or misogyny? You know what all of them in chorus said? They said, like, all of them.
Wow.
Like almost all the Indian movies are full of patriarchy and misogyny. But that's our society. We need to kind of see it so that we can act against it, right? And if it's just completely hidden from you, then
So yeah, my daughter says that all Indian movies, how they harass all the women in the movies. She says, even it's so bad, Mom, why do you watch Indian movies? She just asked me that. So
yeah,
actually, I think the older ones nowadays, they're making a little bit better movies, but
actually, I tried to think of one thing I was going for when I was trying to look for movie clips is really nuance, because I feel like the Kabir Singh, the really obvious depictions of violence or abuse or misogyny, it's easy to recognize it and have a conversation about it, that, hey, it's never okay to do this. But I feel like there are some examples where it's more nuanced, where you don't know what. So I actually saved a clip like that. If Trisha, if the conversation goes there, we can play it. So I feel that nuance is even more these ways where women are very gently put down, or when a father is taking care of a child, it's like, oh, it's, he's helping out, or when there's an advertisement about men pitching in with household work, where the woman says, oh, it helps out. So, there are those examples that also kind of bug me to a large extent. So I'm like, these also need to be teachable moments or things we think about, and not just, the very, very out there examples of violence and abuse.
I think Geeta brought in a good point about, like, movies are nothing but portrayal of real life. And like there are moments in movies. I just sent a clip to Daman, if you could play that. Someone else submitted it.
अरे तुम लोग इधर बैठो।
दिल्ली दी प्यार से You are the one.
She's a star. She's a star.
You are too much.
तू बाहर में क्या कर रही है? आपका डांस देखने के बाद मैं और कहाँ जाती?
चाची, you were amazing. So good.
वैसे थोड़ी कैरेड अवे हो गई थी। दिल्ली में तो मैंने ऐसे कभी नहीं करना है। पता नहीं लोग क्या समझेंगे।
अरे कुछ नहीं समझेंगे आंटी, हम आपके टैलेंट के लिए तैयार हैं। हाँ, हो सकता है तुम तैयार हो, लेकिन पब्लिक क्या कहेगी इंदु चाची? आपको माइग्रेट करना ही पड़ेगा या आपकी इमेज के बारे में बात होगी। तुम जर्नलिस्ट का तो काम ही सब कुछ बढ़ा चढ़ा के लिखना है ना? बढ़ा चढ़ा के। Really? Yeah, seriously. जैसे आजकल तुम लोग women's issues पे लिख रहे हो. I mean, तुम्हारी माने तो ऐसा लगता है कि हमारे यहाँ हर औरत, हर वक्त, हर जगह अनसेफ है. हर सर्वे तो यही कहता है. लेकिन बात सिर्फ सेफ्टी की नहीं है, मतलब इक्वल राइट्स की है, बराबरी की है. प्रिसाइसली, तो बदलाव आ रहा है. स्लोली बट श्योरली थिंग्स आर चेंजिंग. मेरी फैमिली को ही ले लो. मेरे डैड की जनरेशन तक किसी औरत ने काम नहीं किया. नेवर. फिर मैंने आयशा को अलाउ किया बिजनेस चलाने. तुमने आयशा को अलाउ किया? यस. और उसे तुम्हारे परमिशन की जरूरत क्यों है? You know what I mean? No, I don't know what you mean. जब तुम किसी को अलाउ करते हो, तुम अपने आप को एक अथॉरिटी, एक कंट्रोल की पोजीशन में डालते हो. और ये बराबरी नहीं हुई. But thank you. जो मैं कहने की कोशिश कर रहा था वो तुमने साबित कर लिया. Cheers.
Thank you, Daman. So, and thank you, Alap, for submitting this clip. And there's a short blurb that I want to read that was submitted with this. It's interesting that we get to see power imbalances in a new light in Dil Dharakne Do. First, it goes to show that power imbalances have not disappeared, even in modern Indian culture. The families in this movie are modern by most standards, but throughout the movie, there are several examples of toxic relationships and gender disparities. It's inaccurate to say that modern Indian families have shared all outdated standards. Second, I think it's great that Bollywood is slowly beginning to portray these issues as toxic in its films, instead of portraying them as romantic or idyllic. Third, it's important to note that Manav and Sunny are part of the same generation. So while standards are shifting, there are people within the new generation like Manav that are still struggling to catch up. I'm sure a lot of us have heard these kind of conversations that I won't dance in front of public, it won't be nice, I won't dance in front of elders, it won't, or in front of my in-laws, it's not nice, or women from business families don't work. Why do you need to work? We have enough money. What will people say while the man is going to work? So this is really the reality which they are actually showing in the movies.
Actually, it's not only in the movies, recently I saw this, I mean, we all have a lot of time, right? I saw this series called Arranged Marriages, right? Is that arranged marriage or something? No. There is this woman who is like a matchmaker, right? Like, she goes around arranging.
Oh, yeah.
And it's unbelievable
Indian
what they show. Matchmaker, right?
Yeah.
In that,
Indian
one case,
matchmaking, I think. Yeah.
Yes. And in that, one particular mother was the most disgusting for me, because she says things like, oh, you need to get married by this, whatever, this month, because your brother got married 2 years back and they need to have a child, and she can't be pregnant until your marriage because she just cannot like dress up and look good. And she has the whole calendar set for this kid. You need to meet this person, you need to meet, and this is what it is. And she's so proud, and she says, I told my older daughter-in-law that as soon as she came, she said, Are dekho bhai, these are the rules of my house. This is how you should behave. And this is what it is. I'll give you 10 different sets of this jewelry. You wear this, you do this, everything. That is reality. That's not even movies. I mean, and I'm glad that, it's like the movie that Alap was talking about, that sent, those things are also happening a lot now, where within the movie there are discussions against misogyny, there are discussions against patriarchy. All that is happening, but it's a slow and steady change, I guess. Social change is always very slow.
I think Indian matchmaking is the perfect, like the entire series is a perfect, every second there is a perfect example of misogyny.
Exactly.
I couldn't go beyond episode 1, but I've heard a lot. And the interesting thing is that I am a part of a women's WhatsApp group with 150 women. And we had this discussion on this Indian matchmaking thing. And the comment was, the series is so poor and so pathetic that it's almost good to watch. Like that was the reaction from the women. I'm assuming that this series is made for women. I don't think male audience was their target at any point. But that said, there are people who are watching this as a normal reality show. There are people who watch it just to see what's going on in the lives of other people without any judgments or without even thinking this is misogyny. And now I want to point out to the roles of women being misogynistic to other women. Like, why only men? Like, it's systemic, and it's women with women against women, and at this time. And
it's patriarchy is a concept, right? It just can be, it's a belief system. It can be in anybody. It doesn't have to be only in the males.
Which I don't know if you have seen all the Ekta Kapoor serial, the way it has been portrayed, like, first of all, what they have, that they are getting married, but they are not working, they are home, and all the women are fighting against each other at home. Like, they are just keep plotting and it keeps going on. And the surprise, I mean, I understand, even including my own sisters, after 8 o'clock, they are glued to the TV because back-to-back serials, and that's how they get their TRPs high, right? So it's just, there are two ways that I see, Zakia teases me, like, I'm from Bombay, so it's very Bollywood, right? And for me also, like, I have seen different sets of people, like, who goes to theater. Like, I have worked with street children. They're like, okay, we are going to go and watch, at least we will get 3 hours free time, air condition, sit. But what they are getting it from there, they are seeing all those violent behavior, and they are catching, oh, this is how we have to treat people outside, because this is how the media has been portraying. And we cannot deny that media plays a very influential role on people's behavior, because like in 1970s or late 80s, when this movie Hum Ek Duje Ke Liye, when they have committed suicide, the couple, how many suicide rate has, because everybody who were, I was not born, but I have read the news that decade, but the suicide rate has gone really high, because couples whose parents were not approving their relationship, they were actually dying, and many people died. So, like, so it's does, like, media has a very influential role. Like, people like us, we take movies like Provoked, and I'm like, oh yes, there are good subject. They have catched, like, they have really depicted a few things which is hidden, and at least people will realize, but there are movies like Kabir Singh which I have not dared to watch yet, because I'm like, I just cannot. I started seeing some trailer, and I'm like, oh my god, how vulgar it can be, like, what the language, and they are making it so normalized using those language. So, and that's how people copy and just use it. And I don't know where to end, and what education the director also needs there, like, what was his intention was to show.
So the socially conscious people, I want to say, like ourselves, we will just kind of want to talk about it. I want to change society, start a conversations and stuff. But like Twisha mentioned, right, if the hero of the movie is misbehaving so much, and the heroine is kind of begging him to stay on and stuff, there are a lot of kids who are going to emulate that behavior, right? Expecting this woman to kind of go beg them and just be subservient to them. That also will happen, I think.
I think one thing that is also happening is that these days I see a lot of Indian content where they show a fairly glamorized middle class, where they show very fancy homes and lifestyles, which kind of draws that voyeuristic, innate voyeuristic tendency in people to continue to watch and then go with the flow, and whatever they package within that ambience gets accepted very easily, because people are constantly watching what was she wearing, how was he dealing with this emotion, how was he being so cool, or look at that car, and they were in this kind of a locale, they were scuba diving, or they were doing this. They just tend to package it all together in a way that people are not able to see outside that glitz.
This is not, you're right, and this is not just today's thing. And Daman, if you could play the next clip. Daman submitted a clip. I love this format, because I don't have to do the clips.
Sangamitra has her hand up for a bit now.
Oh, sorry.
No worries. I just wanted to say that I think what we talked about women propagating this from one generation to the other, this has been prevalent for a long time. Okay, so in a lot of ways, it is up to people like us to see that we don't propagate it. And also, I think when movies depict these people, like Dil Dharakne, though I have seen. So I think in the end, this guy, Rahul Bose, is portrayed as a loser. Okay, I mean, excuse my using the word loser, but he's just not worth it, right? But then it's okay. His behavior is forgotten. But in cases where people like who react in that way are shown as heroes, then people emulate that. So that's where I think movies need to change. It's okay to have a message, but the message should, towards the end, should go to a conclusion where it says people who do this are not heroes, they are anti-heroes.
Right. Taman, if you could click on the link that I just sent you. And Taman submitted this clip on the same note of, just how normalized the patriarchy is and the misogyny is. And it's been for a long time. Actually, maybe filmmakers think that if you package misogyny in a nice wrapper, nice sugarcoat it, it won't appear as misogyny. And all of us have consumed this content in the past.
This is from a movie from when I was a kid growing up. And this banner who created this movie, Barjatiya banner, they were known for making family movies. They're like, oh, these are the movies families can go together and watch. And growing up, you don't realize, but now when you unpack these movies, I feel like the messages are so harmful.
Goal then have baby. Tashrif la rahe hai. And the long-term goal is cook.
जहाँ घर की लेडीज और बच्चियां हमें अपने हाथों से प्यार से खाना खिलाएं, वही घर है.
So this is a very short clip, and this is like these guys do reviews of Bollywood movies. If you have not watched, go watch them. They like really unpack them in a funny way. But to me, this scene, that ghar wo hai, where bahu betis cook food and men just sit and eat, such a harmful normalization of what women are supposed to be, like just putting them into one cookie cutter image. And I think the Ekta Kapoor serials did the same, where the good bahu or the good woman is the one who wears sari, doesn't work, doesn't fight, doesn't tell the husband what the mother-in-law is doing, none of that. And then the woman who's working, who's like slightly glamorous, she'll have a fancier bindi, she's a vamp.
So I want to pose a question here. What if Kabir Singh was played not by Shahid Kapoor, but by like an Amrish Puri, who's like this renowned villain, right? Like, is that the solution, that you portray it by, that it's not portrayed by a hero? Like, how can the directors or the filmmakers make sure that, like, how can like retain their creative expression and yet make sure that they're not setting a wrong example, especially for the youth and others?
Yeah, I
But
think
see,
that
that's
would
the
have made
point.
it different.
You cannot have people portrayed in black and white, because everybody is some shade of gray in real life. If we try to make a preaching exercise out of movies, we are actually doing a disservice too, because then we are not really showing people that everybody has a gray side. I work with so many people. They all seem to be very professional and courteous at work, but at home they may be different people. How would I recognize them if I constantly saw everything only in black and white?
I also think
That's a
it
very
has
good
been done
point.
before, where a guy like Shah Rukh Khan has played a bad guy who suffered consequences. And like there are other good-looking chocolate boy people who have done these roles. But I keep coming back to Kabir Singh. Like, I hate that movie. I watched it because I was doing some research on misogyny for myself. That guy was actually rewarded in the end, in every
And
possible
that's
way.
unfortunately
So that
true.
is how they
Such people
glorify it.
continue to go along fine in life in spite of their misogyny.
Yeah. And I think that's where the filmmakers can make a difference. It doesn't matter who you hire to act. it's like in the end, what happened? The guy still
No,
got
but
the girl.
I think
I,
you
th- I
have
think
to
it would
understand
make
that it does get rewarded and you have to be able to accept that too. I think that is the key point, that there are people with misogyny in them. They do well in life, they're accepted, but we have to understand where we can't make a preaching a diatribe out of it, but figure out a way to fight it without portraying them as good or bad all the time.
So even though he does get rewarded, although I agree that I think Kabir Singh was a very complicated movie. Do you like the character? Do you not? I mean, he was a good surgeon. He was a good doctor and very smart. But even if he did get rewarded, I think there was some level of, taking the ownership of how far he goes or how far he went. And there were some consequences, although maybe not to everybody's satisfaction, I believe. And how he suffered and realized, I think that to some extent, how he was treating her was not right. But like I said, yeah, it may not be the way it was shown. The end may not have been to everybody's liking or satisfaction, that he actually got how he should have been treated or rewarded.
So I think, I think so 2 points here. I think it would definitely have made a difference because the folks here, we are we don't get influenced by who's playing the character, but that doesn't say that's not true of everybody that goes and watches movies. I mean, Salman Khan fans will like him no matter what he does. So if Tusha's question was if a person who is typically cast in a villainous role, if he was playing it, would it have made a difference? I think yes. Because you go into a movie with the mindset that, okay, this person is bad and whatever he does is bad. And the second point that I wanted to make is just something that came to me while Arvinder was just talking, that he also, in Kabir Singh, he also suffered. And maybe that is where he gets some sympathy from the audience, that, yeah, he did something wrong, but look at how he's suffering because he let things didn't work out and he's almost like losing his career and whatever. And I think again comes back to how career is such a big deal for men versus women and whatever. I mean, that's another whole box. But what I'm getting at is maybe Kabir Singh, because it brought out so many different aspects of humanity, where first one thing was the anger that he had to manage. Second is, yes, he did wrong, but he also went into a self-destructive mode. So that is probably where he gained some sympathy. If he was continuing doing well in his life, then maybe that would not have happened. Yeah, that's just something that just came up while Arvinder was talking about how he also suffered, which he did.
So just furthering Meta's point that that yes, real life is grey. That's correct, and I'll bring in a real life example of Gurbakhsh Chahal, the investor from San Jose, the disgraced investor from San Jose who was caught on video punching and stabbing his girlfriend. He did go to jail briefly. Not did he get enough prison term? Of course not, but he's disgraced. You Google his name, all the results come in related to his domestic violence and his poor behavior. Is he a millionaire? Yes, he is. Is he rich? Yes. Affluent? Yes. All those things check mark. But then the consequences are also gray in that sense that yes, he's rich. Yes, he still has investor friends who are more motivated by money than anything else. But he's disgraced, and people like us know his name here in a bad light. So it's not just that people are gray. I think if movies like Kabir Singh can bring forth the consequences black and white in equal proportion to make them gray, that might help people make their own judgments and decisions and pick and choose more wisely, rather than just showing a little bit of a repercussion but huge rewards at the end.
No, but I don't think a film director or producer or whoever it is who makes the film would agree with us by saying that we are here to give a moral lesson. It is not for us to give a moral lesson or a good ending or something of that sort. It is up to us, to viewers, to be able to see everything in the nuances and be able to derive from it what they want to derive. Now we have to be accepting of the fact that this world is full of people who some will derive pleasure from something wrong and some will be horrified by it. And we have to accept that they exist and they will live among our midst, just like we spent 4 years with Trump. And now we all think that Biden is the best guy to happen, best president to happen to us after this. But nothing is so simple as black and white. And no film team is going to say that it is our moral duty to say this is wrong and this is right.
I just wanted to have a comment. Like, I think the movies are made for the people, so I think the movies do reflect the prevailing values. But I did like what Daman had to say about the Barjatia movies, that it sort of gives a very wrong message because that message is old and it sort of confuses the women out there what their role should be. So I think there were two movies made, which is actually a very good opposition to all the Barjatia movies, which I always say, if it wasn't for cancer, the women would not know how to even be a good daughter-in-law. They always have this a good daughter-in-law in a very bad way. The two movies are Thappad and Sant Ki Aankh. Did any of you get a chance to see Thappad?
Yeah.
Thappad was, I think, very well done. I was so amazed. They really took step by step, and they showed the beginning part that what a good bahu is, and then she had a good conversation with the mother-in-law. But you never liked me as a person, and I've come, and there was no bitterness. So I think Thappad was an amazing movie. And Sant Ki Aankh is actually based on the true story. And it is actually takes a real picture of what the family life is in the northern part of India and how these two women at 60 years old did what they want. So it's kind of a nice thing. I think that such movies should be really shown because it uplifts you no matter what the circumstances are. There is a way. I do not know how popular these movies are. They made money or not, but yeah, it is interesting that you do see movies that go against the norm. I wanted to make a comment on that.
So
So
I
you
want to
mentioned.
Go ahead, Allah.
Sorry, I just wanted to say one thing on that. You mentioned money, Manju. So I actually had a similar point. I think a lot of directors are thinking about two things when they create a movie, right? One is they want high viewership, which translates to money, right? And the second thing is if they have an important message that they're trying to propagate with the movie, they want that to be seen as well, which increases interest and more viewership and stuff like that. So I think the comment was made earlier about bringing in a lesser known actor, like or a known villain actor for some of these perpetrator type roles. I think a movie that can guarantee. So I think a good technique that a director could use to guarantee viewership and spreading of a message while also keeping a negative or a lesser known character as the main hero, which I think in Indian movies, I think it's pretty common, at least from what I know, that more people are likely to watch a movie if a very famous actor is present in it. One thing they can do is, and I think a movie that did a great job with this was Secret Superstar, the Amir Khan movie, where there is a popular, very, I guess, positively seen actor in a role that supports the survivor. But I think it's another movie, which it wasn't DV related, but another movie which I thought did a similar job was it Dear Zindagi? I think that's what it was called. The Shah Rukh Khan movie where he played a side role supporting the person who was in a negative situation, Alia Bhatt in the negative situation. So I think that's a technique people can take. I think it guarantees that. So with the example of Secret Superstar, right? Because Amir Khan is in it, the movie gets higher viewership. The message of domestic violence is spread further. while at the same time there isn't a hero that's being rewarded, or a person that's seen in the eyes of the people as a hero isn't being rewarded at the end, whereas he's actually taking the stance of the survivor by supporting the survivor, right? And the villain gets, I guess, not rewarded. But even in the cases where we're trying to explain real, like the gray areas that Neeta mentioned, even if the perpetrator does get rewarded at the end, I think if there is a strong, famous character that takes the side of the survivor in the movie, that would be a good way to show that it's not okay. Even though yes, it happens in real life that sometimes people who take these actions do get rewarded, but I think seeing a very famous actor not take that stance in the same movie would help bring that message. I just wanted to say that.
And
That's a really good point, and that
even
makes sense.
just making
Arvinder.
these movies, sometimes people who are doing these things, they may or may not realize that. And just watching somebody else do the same thing and they go, oh my God, I do the same thing. So that's so bad. I think so even if you can change one person's mind with one movie, I think that's still good. So again, going back to the idea of that, it forces you to have those conversations. Kabir Singh movie, when I started watching, I also wanted to just stop right at the beginning, but my husband just watches almost any movie, he doesn't care. So I ended up watching, but I kept saying to him, I said, why is this girl not saying anything? Why is she behaving this way? So I wanted to hear from you guys that what did you think, or did you have any feelings or emotions about the actress? I don't even remember her name. So but I was very frustrated with her that I mean, she even does not even protest, does not even say anything. She just goes along. Either she's too scared, which I understand, but still, even at any point, go to a principal, go to her parents, go to anybody for anything, that nothing. She just accepts all of this very quietly. Provoked, that movie I watched a long time ago, but I do remember that she at least protests and she says that what you're doing is wrong, and don't treat me this way, or don't do these kind of things. So at least to me, that was having a voice. The person has to have some voice to be able to say that what you're doing is wrong.
So the contrast between the two is where in Provoked, he does not at all respect her, and when in that clip that we saw, he's probably going to go see his girlfriend or something, versus in Kabir Singh, he is protecting her and out of his possessiveness because he loves her so much. And like I mentioned earlier, she didn't start off liking him, but eventually it's also, it seeps in very slowly, right? It's not something that just happens right away, that she is in this environment and who's the best person to keep her protected, and this one was it at the time. Going to authorities like the principal or whatever, it's almost like the entire, he had a big group of supporters or whatever, and then these are young folks, right? It's not that they are very high mature adults who kind of have seen a lot of life, and they're just starting out on their own for the first time, and whoever seems to be on their side, who seems to be protecting, that's who they go for. That's one theory. Let's hear some others.
I think the movie was a college culture. Like I found her character very infuriating because I was like, man, speak up. Why are you taking this? Because personally, I was feeling that way. But I think it is college culture, which is also created by the messages you get from the media culture society, where possessiveness is translated into love directly. Like so many movies we have seen where if a guy is like pestering you, coming after you, it's because he wants you. And like that's how I saw like that Preeti's character in the movie also go over time. Like she was scared initially, yes, but eventually she's like, oh, he really is coming after me, protecting me. He cares where my dupatta is falling, or protects me from these guys on Holi or whatever. And then that somehow in her head translates into love, which was love, but a toxic love, I believe.
So this just keeps bringing one phrase in my mind, which is a vicious cycle. That's what it is. So someone like Preeti in real life has consumed such movies and normalized aggression and possessiveness in lieu of love. And then this real life Preeti has watched all these movies, and that's normalized and that's popular, and then some filmmaker makes a Kabir Singh, and then Preeti goes and watches it and becomes Preeti again, like becomes a Kabir Singh Preeti. It's just, these things are so intertwined from, like, yes, movies depict real life, and then real life goes and watches movies, and then, so how do we break this cycle, like this vicious cycle that's been created in the media? And yes, we can't reach to individual filmmakers. We can't go and do petitions in Bollywood at this time. But I guess at the grassroots level, what are some things that can help break this vicious cycle? Maybe small steps at home, maybe small steps in our social circle. So any thoughts will be welcome.
I think to see more movies which message the opposite. There's another movie just came out on Netflix called Sir. I don't care for the last 20 minutes of the plot, but that's another, because it really takes a very simple movie of a life of a person who works at home. And she's a maid servant, but she has so much dignity. Nothing like she got widowed at the age of 19 and all that. And she's telling this guy who's an engineer, a very rich guy, like, my life didn't end it because my marriage didn't go well. Like, and she has dreams and she works at it, but in a very subtle, realistic way, nothing like spectacular and all of that. Yeah, the last 20 minutes, I do not know why the director made her like fall in love with the guy she was working for. But that was even like, you can ignore the last 20 minutes, but up till then, like how she deals with herself and her dignity, given that she has such minimal choices. I think that such movies, if we promote, it just are very promising, because then we can say, like, no matter what the conditions are, you will find a way to uplift yourself. So,
I think what you're saying is that we should not fall into stereotypes of what we expect a movie's ending should be.
Some movies are done well. Like, I do not know why, like this guy, Sir, like he's done such a beautiful job with this girl. Like, you know, she's very credible. She's very realistic. And the entire filming is done very artfully. So I definitely recommend that. And I think that such movies, I do not know again, like if the movie will make money or not, but yeah, it is something that is very uplifting. So I think we should promote them. If, you know, I do not know, the money is always involved. What movie becomes popular in the mainstream.
Oh, as we move to solutions, here are some good clips that were shared in the document, and this is from Sri Vidya. And if you can play the clip now.
मैं पूरन पोली बना रही हूँ, तेरे भाई की फेवरेट। तेरे रूम की क्या हालत बना रखी है इसने ना, बस पूछ मत। हाँ, तो तू बता रही हो सुबह सुबह कैसे फोन किया? ऑफिस नहीं गई? क्या जॉब छोड़ दिया मतलब? अरे ऐसे कैसे? कितनी तरक्की हुई थी तुम्हारी, ये हम भी कितना प्राउड फील कर रहे थे। अचानक ये जॉब छोड़ना, रियू कैसे? क्या हुआ? दीदी जॉब छोड़ रही है। क्यों? पर बेटा, शादी के बाद घर के काम बढ़ जाते हैं, लेकिन तू अकेली थोड़ी है। आकाश भी तो है तुम्हारे साथ, वो घर के काम में तुम्हारी हेल्प कर सकता है ना? अरे उसे घर का काम नहीं आता मतलब? ऐसे कैसे नहीं आता? नहीं आता होगा। गलती हमारी है। बेटियों को पैरों पे खड़ा होना सिखाते हैं, लेकिन बेटों को हाथ बटाना नहीं सिखाते। तो और एक बार सोच ले, मैं रात को फोन करती हूँ।
क्या हुआ माँ? क्या हुआ माँ?
गलती हो गई, सुधार रही हूँ।
So this is one ad, and Srividya submitted it. She said she might not be at the meeting, but she did submit a blurb. This ad from Ariel beautifully addresses one of my big bugbears. We want to raise our daughters and sons to be strong partners in a relationship. I do feel we are all raising strong daughters ready for the 21st century, but we sometimes leave our sons behind in the last one. This ad does a great job addressing this under the same roof. So yes, this is a wonderful ad, and here is another ad that Zakia submitted, and then we can talk about some portrayals.
2 মিনিট থাক না কিছু মানুষ অপেক্ষায়, কিংবা আমায় দেখে খুব কিছুটা উলট পালট, ফেসবুকে ঝড় উঠুক, কিছু ঘটনা থাক ঘটার অপেক্ষায়, বিয়ে বাড়িতে টক শো চলুক, এই 2 মিনিট শুধুই ফেয়ার গ্লোর সাথে। ফেয়ার গ্লো ফেয়ারনেস সোপ প্রতিদিন গোসলে জাস্ট 2 মিনিট থাকুক আপনার ত্বকের সাথে। এই শক্তিশালী ফেয়ারনেস প্রোটিন সলিউশন ত্বকের গভীরে মেলানিন কন্ট্রোল করে আর ত্বককে করে তোলে আকর্ষণীয় ফর্সা ও দীপ্তিময়। ফেয়ার গ্লো, দীপ্তিময় প্রতিদিন।
Zakia is here. Zakia, you want to say something?
I think this type of very subtle messages are the most damaging to me. I think, all the fairness scream and how you need to look good, even when these people are tying up with industries like showing women's empowerment and all, that how you can be more confident if you look better, right? You look beautiful, you are confident, then you can win everything. So the message of women's empowerment is being hijacked by all these beauty products, and somehow your beauty will decide how successful you become in every sphere of your life. And I think that's very, very disturbing. Fair and Lovely, everybody knows, and it's still here. I don't know how we can tolerate something as, objectionable, as offensive as Fair and Lovely. That's just life.
I think I'm totally with
So
Zakia.
Zakia,
I think I
sorry,
found it very offensive, the whole thing. Yeah, it's just it's worse than the Barjatia movies because it's, yeah.
Yeah. So in India, Zakia, they try to equalize it with men by introducing a fair and handsome or something like that, where a guy gets a job just because he uses his cream and becomes fair and gets a job. I mean,
So that
just an
version is
aside.
also there. I just played that women's version.
Yeah, so
I was here saying the beauty means fairness. So
Yes.
they are adding beauty with fairness. So it's as if you are not fair, you are not beautiful. So that's the most toxic message they are giving here. So it's not that, yes, if you are beautiful, you are confident, you can be successful. That's a different message than if you are fair, then only you can be beautiful and confident. So that is over one level even ahead of.
And
Yeah, we all know that, right? We all know
yeah.
that.
No, and I think it carries over into society. This is really true. When I had some friends and a friend was looking for a bride for her cousin, okay, and then she said, oh, they met so many girls, but no one is really up to it. They don't look good. So then we said, oh, let's see your cousin's picture. He looked like an orangutan. Okay. Right, honestly, I'm honest, okay? And then I'm thinking, this guy is looking for a beautiful bride. Why will a beautiful bride marry him? Just because he's an engineer? That doesn't make sense.
And beauty is,
Yeah.
subjective. Who is orangutan in your eyes probably will be
No,
Shah Rukh Khan in somebody's.
Nandini, if I had that picture, I would show it to you. Okay, this guy has not. He may be a great smart guy, but he looks terrible. Okay, so, but everyone wants a fair, beautiful. That's all the ads are, right?
He
That's
just
okay.
wants to marry
If
somebody
people are
beautiful so that he can create a very beautiful and smart human.
No, here is the thing. But that's okay if somebody is not beautiful. Not everybody will be beautiful, right?
I know, I'm
There
just
will
kidding.
be people who are not good looking, and that's absolutely okay. We have to
That's
make
okay.
sure we don't even
Beauty
we don't
is
put anybody
overrated.
down because they are not beautiful, right? I don't,
Correct.
I don't
Or
like
also,
that
who
person
is
is
not
gonna next speak on
who
me
is
that she's not
who
beautiful.
is
She
not
looks like
beautiful in your eyes
something else.
could be beautiful in my eyes. So that is a different discussion, different
No, but I'm
conversation.
saying, but they will reject people on the grounds that they are not beautiful or fair. That's my objection.
I think I think the concept of beauty is also to reduce the power imbalance, in the sense that the boy is in general considered more powerful, which means even though he might have a job and they might have the same job, they might come from similar families, they might have the same education, but the boy is higher. So to compensate for that, there is the beauty. So the girl has to be beautiful to come here. And then that might become an excuse for domination and subjugation. It's like, if you're not beautiful enough, I'm going to dominate over you. Like, I'm going to be bitter. I didn't get a pretty wife. So there is this inherent power imbalance, maybe, which the society is trying to compensate by fairness or beauty for the girl, not for the boy, for the girl.
Yeah.
So
Actually, also,
women are
in
seen
some
as
communities,
object. Also,
yeah.
women are seen as object here, so that we
Yeah,
can polish.
exactly.
We can polish. We can make that object beautiful to present. So that's the another toxic message our community, our society, through media, through all the message all the time we are hearing. If you are a girl, you have to be pretty, and because you are the inherent message is you are an object. So
And you are his possession, right? See, people want a beautiful wife, or guys want a beautiful wife because the wife is his possession. It's almost like I want a 70-inch TV.
So because Kabir Singh and Provoked, in both films, we have seen that women are seen as mere object. When Aishwarya Rai, fell down from the stairs, the guy asked that, is baby okay? Is our baby okay? Is my baby okay? It's not that, are you okay? So that means you are merely an object. Who is holding my baby? So my concern is my baby okay? Not whether you die or you leave. I don't care. So the indirect message was that. And in Kabir Singh, so every scene that guy either directly or indirectly said that you are my property, you are my object, you are my property, I own you. When people are sending any message through any movie, so that what is the goal of this Kabir Singh movie? So to depict a love story. If director wants to portray a love story, then why did he show that in a way that was shown that the guy is powerful, dominating, he can do whatever he wants to do with that girl, and that girl is damsel in distress, always at mercy of that guy. So if we were talking about creative, what was the word the Zakia you used, creative freedom. So if they are using creative freedom, then he could have used a different way to show his creative freedom to depict a love story. Why did he have to portray in that toxic relationship, glorify that toxic relationship, that many young fellows who are watching that film will know that this is normal. It is okay to do that behavior. And what we are discussing here, that we are this kind of movies, this kind of books are giving us opportunity to talk about this issue, to discuss this issue. Probably yes, for whom? A handful of people like us, like 13 people where we are discussing. When we are discussing this topic, other 1300 people who are watching this movie and thinking, wow, that's a good way, best way to show my love to my partner. Like I have to dominate. I have to show that I am the man of the house. I can do whatever I want. I have to protect her. I have to, in the way of protecting her, I can do whatever I like. She's my property. So that kind of message is also very dangerous because we have Hindi movies or whatever, the South Asian movies, they have enormous effect on us. They shape culture. So they are not different from culture. They are, this is Hindi movies or Bollywood movies, they are not existing out of vacuum. They are existing because it is made from people's, daily life or daily culture. And it is also, when we are seeing this movie, it is also reinforcing that culture, that it is okay to do that. And so it's a very complicated thing, that how can we talk about this thing, how can we stop this thing, how can we raise awareness. It's long way to go, but at least we are having this discussion. Thank you.
I want to add one comment about this fairness in this culture, right? I had a client long time back. It seems when she got married, she had like a darker skin, so her parents had to give more money to these people as dowry, because the boys, the husband's, parents said that, oh, look at your daughter, my son is an engineer, he's in the United States, your daughter is so dark. So they paid more dowry. And one of the ways that he abused her was constantly calling out her skin color. And then probably when he was studying here till he got married, he had a lot of white girlfriends, right? And the white girls really don't know that this guy is just fooling around with them. He had all kinds of pictures. He'll just line them up on the table and tell her, see what I could have had and what I ended up with.
So he could have, but why didn't he?
Yeah, that's
in
the
his
thing.
head, right? He could have.
In his head. Yes, he could have. Yeah, his parents wouldn't have let him marry those girls. Right? Where was the dowry coming?
Yeah, I was going to say, she should have said, well, they didn't pay you dowry, did they?
Yeah, they won't pay dowry, so he couldn't have married them. So.
So you see how this needs to be balanced. Like you're darker, more money.
Yes,
here,
yes,
so that's what it is.
Right.
No, and the funny thing is, the girl's parents agreed to pay. They thought that it is a defect in the girl. That's even more, scary, isn't it? For the girl's parents to think that.
I think the parents can be excused because they are from the old school, and for them, marriage is end all year. But the good part is that she's a survivor and she came to you, and then like the message to the younger people is that if you do get into it, then you find your way, because the thing is, it's your life after all.
Yeah.
So then, like, because parents, like, they have their own challenges, their own upbringing, their own economic status, their own social status.
No, but you can't excuse things like this, right?
No,
Whether
I'm not
it's
excusing
parents,
them, but I'm just saying is that.
So the thing is, we cannot use somebody's, where they come from, their culture. Otherwise, when will the society change?
Correct.
These are people in their 50s and 60s getting their 22-year-old daughter married, and the daughter is educated too. And if they do that, then we can't go back to that, right? We need to kind of call it and condemn the act wherever it is what I feel.
No, you're right. The thing is, but it's better to work with the younger people because they'll be the one. No, I'm not disagreeing. I'm not okay with the parents. But anyways, yeah.
Daman had her
Education is important.
Daman.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, all this talk of fairness is reminding me of another very similar yet equally important thing, which is the body weight, which for girls again matters so much more than for guys. And it reminds me of a Punjabi song, and it's like a party song. So for like every wedding season, party songs change. So one season this was like the main song. It says Luck 28 Kudi da 47 weight. So it's like her waist is 28 and her weight is 47.
Oh my God.
Listening to that, like I cannot dance to this, and it's like so horrible. It's not even like a healthy BMI or like whatever that is. Like nobody can possibly have that, but you are setting unrealistic expectations. Like all the young guys dancing to this, listening to this, and that was a very famous singer too. They are going to be like, oh yeah, the girl I want needs to be this thin, and like we already have a body image, dysmorphia going around worldwide. So I think that's another very important thing that we
And
have
there
to.
are more, right? There are kala chashma jachta hai gore mukhde pe, gore gore mukhde pe kala kala chashma. It's like gore gore baake chore meri gali aaya karo. Like we've had so many examples. These are never ending. But that said, there are two groups in the society, much like the left wing and the right wing here in America, which is that imagine someone who appreciates Tapsi's character in Thappad and loves that character. Will that same person love Kabir Singh's character or vice versa?
I'm just saying we had her hand up. We had her hand raised a little while ago.
But can you give it context to the movie? I don't know which movie and what you're talking about.
Right. So Thappad is the movie. Has anybody watched it? I haven't yet. So can anybody give context? Okay, everybody.
So sorry, the reason I had my hand up was to say that's also why I feel visual representations are so important. We're talking about body images, and the number of people who who are the Bajatya movies or the supposedly perfect homemaker, the perfect heroine. All of these are women who are mostly fair, who are who look a certain way, and even curly hair. In fact, you won't the amount of prejudice against curly hair or against bushy hair is mind blowing. So it's like, okay, you need to look a certain way for you to be accepted as wife material or good woman material or whatever, right? So I feel that visual aspect of representation, even where otherwise it's very innocent, they're portraying very good family values and stuff like that. I think that visual representation does get to people, and they're carrying that image in their mind. So anyways, to Thappad, so it's about a woman who literally fights and gets a divorce because she got slapped once by her husband. So till that time she gets slapped that once, she has a quote unquote ideal life, meaning she is a homemaker, she takes excellent care of her mother-in-law, she runs her family very well, and she's very independent. She's a wonderful woman, loving woman, and she has an ideal life. And her husband is puts her down once in a while, but there's nothing that meets the threshold of what we would call emotional abuse or definitely not physical abuse. The first time he slaps her, and then she kind of realizes that what she's living, her ideal life, is actually just a myth. That she's constantly has been taking a lot of nonsense in the relationship, and it kind of just comes together for her, and she decides, you know what, he slapped me just once. You could say it's not wrong, but it is. He should not have slapped me even once. And that's pretty much what she goes through the rest of the movie.
Yeah, it's a must-see movie. Everybody must watch it.
Yeah,
It's
and
amazing.
what we mentioned is that he puts her down once in a while. To me, I was watching it, and from the first minute itself, I felt like he's not very disrespectful towards her, everything that she does. So I think
this is the pivotal point for her,
right. The
yeah.
physical violence, the disrespect was the pivotal point where she then puts two and two together, and it
Actually,
becomes
it
a
almost
big
like an
mountain of
entire
things.
life is in the service of everyone in the family. She was measured by how well she served all of them, and it's with that slap she realizes that nothing matters.
Right,
So
but I think that the slap was a figure of speech. In fact, the movie
Exactly.
has so much depth, because I think a lot of people get confused, and it was more interesting to listen to a lot of people, my friends and family, and they said, like, why is she making such a fuss? And I said Thappad is in a way misleading, because that movie shows, and it's not that the guy is bad either. And I agree, like, like Kashmira said, like, I didn't care for the guy for the first time, but I like the way Tapasi comes to it, that I'm the one who sold myself. I'm the one who must have seen these Barjatia movies and messed up my head. And I'm really sad that many people don't get that message. It's not about the guy. Let's not focus about the other person. What is it that you have confused yourself? You are the one with your head under the sand. And And I feel a lot of is wasted. A lot of our energy and time is wasted. Because the other guy, the thing is, if you cannot lift up your own head, how can the other person help? And this movie is the only movie I can say really works her way, because even her mother doesn't see it. And forget the mother, like a lot of my friends don't see it. And I said, why you focus on the thappat? That was just an artistic way. It's like a hysterical person getting a slap. And in the end, she tells her mother-in-law that you were very loving to me, but you were not loving to me. You were just loving your son's wife. I don't even exist for you. And then her mother also, like with her example, the mother-in-law also tries to find her own identity. But I think this movie was very well done. I think I've not seen anyone doing such a good job. Like her father says, like, that you will not win in the end. She says, yeah, but I will be myself. So it also doesn't promise that if you live your life, the society will, serve you like, roses and all of that, taking responsibility. So I definitely recommend this movie.
Another interesting thing about that, is her father is the one who supports her. Even the mother thinks that she should just kind of accept it and go back. Even the young brother also does that. And then they show the relationship between the brother and his girlfriend or fiance or something. And that inequality in that relationship too. I think it was a very well made,
very
well made movie.
Yeah.
And the father also supports her in a very nicer way, in the sense that he's not telling her, he's just giving her the space. And I feel like if I'm like a Maitri counselor, this is what like I got, like, that giving the space to the survivor. Like, I wish I could be the father. He was such a amazing characterization of our role in this service.
There are a couple of movies
Zakia,
which, go ahead, Zakia.
Can
So I just want to take the focus a little bit away from the individual, right? We are putting a lot of responsibility on the individuals, what people should do, but we don't live in a vacuum. If we live in a society where if I leave my relationship, I don't have the safety, and the safety doesn't only mean physical, right? Emotional safety, economic safety. And for a woman of certain age, the safety of her complete well-being, right? And if the society is like that, if this person is in the economic standard, if this person is at a level that they cannot afford themselves, so there are so many different things. So I don't necessarily agree with putting the burden on the woman. Why is she taking it? Why is she not? I heard a lot of frustration. I mean, I'm one of them. I get frustrated too, every day hearing from people that, why are you taking this? But then we all know why people take this, right? Because that's the only way. So and I also feel we are putting too much emphasis on movies. Nobody learns life lessons watching movies. Come on.
I agree. I think I agree with that, and so it's not movies, but it is saying in a lot of cases, people stay in it for the economic part of it. So
Zakia, I hear your point that there is a society to deal with and all that, but it is nice to see a movie where how many cases out there that if a woman also realizes, or I won't say a woman, like a survivor realizes, because it could be man or woman, where they can do something, because you can only change yourself. There was this documentary we all saw with a true story in the last meeting from somewhere from Canada. I forget, like Canada or British, somewhere, or maybe America, I do not know. She was from South Bangladesh. And I really like, because she was in real trouble. I mean, this is a true story. We all saw it together because the survivor also interviewed. But I like, and I think Zakia's point, even though she was confident, but her husband was almost a neurotic, and the society was going to do nothing for her. And she was at risk, and she did suffer because, she got blinded by him. So those, I definitely agree, that even if you know it, once you get into a bad relationship, it is, everybody, not only you, but your family, everybody's at risk. So yeah, but I do not know how much is that the higher percentage and how much is the other percentage.
I have one more point, because Kashmir is on the phone right now. I think I'll just make a quick point about movies and how, we should not be really learning anything from movies, really. It's just entertainment, right? But I also see that within families, there are families that are extremely book-centric. There are families that are outdoor-centric or sports-centric. And then there are families that are actually quite movie-centric, especially in a place like South Asia, where it's very crowded, people don't get to go outside all that much. I've seen lots of families consume, and in fact, for me, after marriage, it was a shock because we are a very book-centric family, but Srini's family is extremely movie-centric. So the amount of consumption of visual media, movies, serials, all of those, it's just mind-blowing. So when you watch like 3-4 hours of something every single day of your life, it does influence you, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, it does have an influence on you. So I feel we can't quite, in an ideal world, movies should not influence us. We should not be learning from movies, but I feel that it does have an influence as well. So
I agree with you, Lakshi, because the South, the entire India, like you go to India, they don't even talk to you. Like, they're glued to the TVs. I mean, it's like a constant 24/7 source of information. And there are a few movies I feel that should be banned for the adult parents. All these in-laws fighting with each other and all that, and also that Bagban was such a bad message, creating that negative feeling between parents and children. I mean, there's so many movies where it just confuses people. I mean, we're going off the topic, but I'm just saying is that movies can be very damaging to the seniors in India, or maybe in all of Asia.
And I'm jumping in. I'm sorry, I'm not on video, so I didn't raise my hand. Sorry, Twisha, if you're moderating. I just wanted to say, I think Arvinder had made a point earlier about people not being self-aware, and then I think it was Arvinder watching it on films, and sometimes it does change something. And I think that is important. We don't learn everything from movies, but there is something that probably needs to constantly shift. And like we know with our, prevention work that we do, it's not a one you feed, like it's not that one dose you take and the world is changed. So this is probably going to go on. And movies are probably going to be a big source of where that messaging is either reinforced correctly or wrongly.
So I have 2 more clips. B submitted this one. Again, on how movies are influencing people's worldview, and how subtle portrayals can really change the way people think.
ஹலோ
சாரி சார், உங்களை இங்கே வர வச்சுட்டேன்.
பரவாயில்ல, என்ன விஷயம் சொல்லுங்க.
தேங்க்ஸ் ஃபார் கமிங். இவ என் ஸ்டூடெண்ட் ரோஷினி.
ஹலோ ரோஷினி.
ஹலோ சார். இவ வீடு அமைஞ்சிக்கரையில் இருக்கு. இவ இருக்கிற ஏரியா கொஞ்சம் சரியில்லை. அங்கே ஒரு பையன் இவகிட்ட கலாட்டா பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கான். இது டெய்லி நடக்குது. வீட்டில் எப்படி சொல்றதுன்னு தெரியாம இவ சொல்லாம இருந்திருக்கா. கூட ஒரு 4-5 பேர் வேற மூஞ்சில ஆசிட் ஊத்திடுவேன்னு சொல்லியிருக்காங்க. காலையிலேருந்து பின்னாலேயே வந்திருக்காங்க. பஸ்லேயும் இப்போ ஸ்கூல் விட்டு போகும்போதும் வெளியில் அவங்கள பார்த்துருக்கா. என்ன பண்ணுறதுன்னு சொல்லுங்க. போலீஸ் ஆக்ஷன் எடுக்க முடியுமா? நான் ஏதாவது ஃபார்மில் கம்ப்ளைண்ட் கொடுக்கணுமா? இவளுக்கு எந்த ப்ராப்ளமும் வரக்கூடாது.
சரி, 2 பேர் கூட வாங்க. ஜீப்ல இருங்க. இருக்கானுங்களா ரோஷினி?
அந்த ஆட்டோங்க கிட்ட.
இறங்கி போ.
சார்,
பயப்படாத, நான் இருக்கேன். ரோஷினி, நான் இருக்கேன்னு காமிச்சுக்காது. இறங்கி போ.
ஜிஜிக்கா, ஸ்கூல்ல இருந்து லேட்டா வந்தா சைலண்டா போயிருவியா? வாடி வாடி, வரல வீடு வந்து உங்க அம்மா மூஞ்சில ஆசிட்டு ஊத்திடுவேன். வாடி வாடி.
I have the greatest job to find the healthiest, most delicious products that are good for you and good for the
வாடி. கூப்பிட்டா வர மாட்டீங்க. என்ன பிடிக்கல? என் மூஞ்சி நல்லா என்ன பிடிக்கல? என் கூட சேர்ந்து சுத்தினா என்ன குறைஞ்சு போயிருவியா? நான் ரொம்ப கூலானவண்டி. ஏன்டி என்ன டென்ஷன் ஆகுற சொல்றா அவன்டா
ஏன்டி இம்சம் பண்ற அவன் தான் ரொம்ப கூலானு சொல்றான்ல ஒரு நாள் ஸ்கூல் கட்டடிச்சு அவன் பின்னாடி சுத்தறான்ல ஏன்டி மாட்டேங்கற
டேய் மாப்ள இவகிட்ட என்ன பேச்சு இவன் மூஞ்சில ஆசிட்ட ஊத்து அப்பதான் இவளுக்கு புரியும் என்ன ஆசிட்ட ஊத்துனா தெரியுமா ஊத்துடா ஊத்துடா
சும்மாடா விளையாட்டுக்கு புல்லட்ல வெறும் துப்பாக்கி பயந்துட்டியா
So we had submitted this clip. We want to speak about this.
Sure. So the reason I put this in is I feel even with lyrics, advertisements, movies, it's very easy to find something that's like way out there and really is objectionable. And we all know what those things are, right? But for me, this movie is made by a director who is extremely respectful to women. The characters in his movies, the women characters, are very realistic. They are educated. They have a mind of their own. The relationships they have with their heroes is very, very equal. So the portrayals are really, really good of women in all of his movies. So in this particular scene, though, right, there are two things you see. One is a girl getting molested, and two is throwing of acid, which is extremely common, at least in India. I don't know about other South Asian countries. Acid is easily available, and people really do use it for a lot of personal abuse kind of situation. So many girls face the threat of, if you belong to me and if you don't toe the line with me, I will throw acid so you can belong to nobody else, because it will spoil your face and your beauty. So your selling point is gone. So that is a real horrific situation that many women face in real life. So when this scene unfolds, it kind of ends with the police guy puts a gun to his nose and he says, I'm gonna shoot you, and then beats them all up. And then at the end of it, he says, he tells the girl, you should always walk with your head held high. Don't worry, these guys won't bother you anymore. So that's a very typical reaction. A police guy called into a situation would do this. But for me, it is, you're using a very, very real danger to women in a movie, and the solution you're proposing is basically the hero doing hero baji. So I'm like, how does it help? So to me, in an otherwise excellent movie, I feel this is a bit of a letdown, and I feel very subtly it kind of is not at all empowering. So that's why I kind of wanted that, because this is a very gray area.
Daman, can you play the next clip as well, because it kind of lines up with what we just showed about a teenager being attacked.
Stop it! क्या कर रही हो पागल हो गई क्या? ये सिखाया है मैंने तुमको.
Stop it, Rohan. Big boys don't fight. लड़की है.
तुम डर क्यों रही हो?
इसने पहले मुझे मारा था. मैंने देखा था कि लड़कियां भी बास्केटबॉल खेल सकती है. और इसने कहा, लड़कियां बास्केटबॉल नहीं खेल सकती.
इसने तुमसे सच कहा और तुम इससे लड़ने लगी.
क्यों? रोज कॉलेज में मिस अंजलि आपको बास्केटबॉल में हरा नहीं देती थी क्या?
चुप शरा. रोज नहीं हराती थी, कभी कभी हराती थी. ओके या
राहुल, तुम रोज हारते थे.
याद करो अंजलि, तुम रोज हारती थी.
राहुल, तुम रोज हारते थे.
नो अंजलि.
यस राहुल.
बच्चों के सामने झूठ मत बोलो, बुरा असर पड़ेगा. करें
क्या? मैं झूठ बोल रही हूँ?
तो मैं झूठ बोल रहा हूँ. झूठी. या वो
सच तो ये है कि तुम सिर्फ चीटिंग करके जीत सकते हो.
डोंट कॉल मी चीटर, ओके?
That's what you are. Cheater.
अंजलि चीटर नहीं.
Rahul is a cheater. He is a cheater.
Don't listen to her.
Cheater.
Oh, Miguel. Okay, I'm all right. I'm all right, yeah.
ओके मैं तुम्हें अभी इसी वक्त चैलेंज करती हूँ मेरे साथ खेलो
Don't be silly, Anjali. Yeah?
क्यों डर गए राहुल
राहुल खन्ना कभी भी किसी से डरता नहीं है.
We will see.
We will see together. Oh! Yo! Come on, Rahul! Rahul, that's the guy! Rahul!
So even and this clip was submitted by Shabana. Thank you. So Shabana, I want to say something about this clip, and the common thread between the two clips is that it depicts teenagers/children, which will also be watching such movies.
So I shared this because it came in one of the things when my 8-year-old was watching, and she came to me and she said, "Why it's saying that ladkiyan can't play basketball, but I know how to play basketball, right?" So that's, I mean, that's where it started, and I'm like, okay. And I sent this to V this morning, and I'm like, okay, 1998 movie, very famous movie, right? All of us, I don't know, I can assume, but even as that time, I must have watched this movie so many times. And that time it was like, oh, it's fun. Karan Johar's first movie, people would go by brand and production and all. But then the things that has depicted, like, oh, girls can't do that, and it's only boys game. And also, like, the next scene is like, oh, you can't play in sari, like, now because you are wearing a sari, you are losing this game. So all these things, and I don't know how demoralizing for the girls or the women who wants to play or go to sports, like, oh, I can't play after a certain age. So that's, I mean, the movie has transition in this movie, like, from, there is a 8-year gap, and in 8 years she lost her confidence, she can't play basketball anymore. So many things has actually emerged from this small scene. And also, like, what message are the father is giving, oh, you can't play because you are a girl, you can't play basketball. So what you should be doing, you should wear sari and dance, because she is in a summer camp and she is there for dancing. So that's where my thought were after, I mean, analyze after 22 years. That movie, no, yeah, 20. That movie came in 1998. We are in 2021 now.
So I just want to be mindful of everybody's time as well, because we're hitting almost the end of the time that we blocked. But at the same time, like, the reason why I kind of put these clips at the end was that these depicted children/teenagers, and that's where the vicious cycle starts. This is where the children are watching it, consuming it, growing up with this, perpetuating it, normalizing it, accepting it, watching it more, demanding it, filmmakers making it, going back to the children of the next generation. So this is really where we are if we go deeper into it. And I'm sorry we could not play all the clips, but I do want to keep the last 5 minutes just for any parting comments, thoughts, just for a
I
wrap
just
up.
want to, I think what Vishalakshi brought up is a very important point, which I think that I've always been disturbed about this, that there's a real threat, this acid, or as we saw in that Bangladeshi documentary. And I always felt that why we women collectively have not been able to address that. All the other parties, like, we can work on our mindset and, like, that's a programming thing, but this is a real threat. It's true. And I think that somehow I always feel that collectively women have not come to be able to, like, it happens every day. Like in Malaysia, there's so many young girls are sold for sex trade and all of that. We know that. And yet we don't have a collective solution for that. So that is, I do not know, like, but it really is sitting very heavy on my heart, which I think may need a new session on its own. Like, it has its own concern.
But every society has to evolve. So I don't think there is a collective solution. Every society has to evolve, and I don't know where it begins. Maybe it all begins at home. Like Trisha was saying, I mean, we don't accept anything. We don't accept that there has to be a balance, or that some people have more power in our society. We train our next generation to not think like that.
I don't think
that's where we can start.
No, but this is not, okay, that is a society, but this is a universal problem where the women are used, like they are abused openly in a very violent way. So the acid, or like, being forced into a sex trade, it's there even in Bay Area. So it's not like it is a universal problem. We all know it.
But the sex trade has a lot to do with economics.
Yeah, but the thing is, why the women, like the pimp, like, actually I went for the training with YWCA, and they said in Bay Area, a pimp makes $173K per woman. Why is that woman not making it? I'm just saying it. My problem here is that it is such a huge subject that collectively as women gender, we have not been able to, why is it there? It's still existing even today. Like, if we don't face it, it is not a societal problem. It is a universal problem where the women do get compromised at a source level. And there's no, I mean, I don't have a solution, but I do know this is a threat. And we've not even talked about it.
And this is our evolutionary instinct. Traditionally, men were hunters. They were supposed to be doing the important job. Women were just gatherers and nurturers. And that's how we've evolved. But talking of evolution, I think just also in the interest of time, I think this was a very thought-provoking discussion. And the next time when we discuss Thapar or Kabir Singh with someone, I'm sure we'll come up with much better and richer arguments to present our case and be more mindful with ourselves and with our friends in terms of just how they deal with the future generations. So our evolution goes in a more positive way rather than in a regressive way.
I have a quick comment. I was just going to say, hey, there's so many good movie recommendations here. And then I was thinking, we, in many ways, our eyeballs, our attention spans are commodities right now. That is being sold, and that is important. Our attention, our eyeballs. So I feel we should put it where, put it where it matters. Like even something as simple as crowdsourcing our movie recommendations that we appreciated in each other's languages, considering with our Asian we are so diverse, and even putting our attention to that and discussing those movies and uplifting those movies that have those messages, I feel is a very minuscule but important thing. That's for me what came out of this meeting. Really, I would take these movie recommendations back and at least watch them, because
I just want to say one thing. I mean, just so we don't kind of forget how far we have come. Starting in the late 50s and 60s with the women's, movements and stuff, like we are at a Me Too movement space, right? Where at least we are able to talk, we are able to kind of bring like this huge figures like Harvey Weinstein, or like, what is that guy in the Fox News guys? Like a lot of women are at least starting to speak up. But since like, you have like all these different classes of women, I mean, people involved, this social change will take time, but things have been happening. Of course, I mean, we all wish that there is a much huger momentum to this than there is already. But I think that we also have to kind of just want to keep in mind that things have been happening, but it is just that deep-rooted patriarchal looking at women as just objects, and let men be free. I think if we lock up every man after 7 o'clock in the night or something, half these problems will be solved. Or like, there are so many other things, right? But as a society, I think we just need to change. And I think we have come a long way, but we still, and I mean, not to say that we don't have, we have far to go, but we have.
On that note, thank you, Geeta. That was like the perfect bow on the discussion. Thank you, everyone, for your time, for your inputs.
Hey, Twisha, thank you so much for putting this together. This was very interesting.